Yeah, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today's webinar is titled Getting Your Patients to Say Yes to Your Treatment Plans. My name's shown up there, but it's Chung, and I'm part of the sales and growth team at Tabio. If you've ever called in, there's a 1 in 5 chance you may have spoken to himself or one of my colleagues. I do recognise quite a few names, and so it's quite exciting to have you here today. But yeah, so at Tabio, we are obviously finance and payment providers as a payment solution. We are very serious about helping practices grow their private revenue, and also about making it easier for effectively customers to say yes with going ahead with treatments by making at least the finance and payment side of things a little bit easier. So we're super excited to be hosting this exclusive seminar series with Dr. Bhavna Doshi and Dr. Rahul Doshi. Each webinar session has very specific aims to helping you create a successful dental practice. And today is the second in the webinar series, and I'd say it's called Getting Your Patients to Say Yes to Your Treatment Plans. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The session is recorded. If you have any questions at all, please message me directly in the Zoom panel. I'll be able to kind of put together the questions and group them together, so that at the end we'll have a little Q&A, an opportunity to ask any questions about today's session. But yeah, so I'm super pleased to introduce you to Dr. Bhavna Doshi. Bhavna, along with Rahul and their team at Perfect Smile Studios, have completed about 3,000 smile makeovers. Having been in dental industry for about 30 years, they've worked with successful practices, principals in multiple practices. You've been judges and also obviously in partnership with the Dentex group. And together they've built successful business, and they've switched now to a primary focus of practice profitability and growth. Let's say kind of growth solutions to basically help other practices kind of achieve success and growth through their own practice as well. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to you, Bhavna.
Thank you, Chung. Thank you so much, and thank you for hosting this webinar today. Super excited. I've got lots to share with you guys. So right, let's see. Let's just share the screen and then we can get started. Right, okay. Screen okay? Everyone can see that, yeah? Good. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to talk today about how to successfully increase your case acceptances to significantly grow your practice. Before I do, I'll just give you a little brief I don't know, a little bit about us. So I primarily work with myself and Rahul Doshi on most ventures. We've got probably about 30 years experience in the industry, and we've kind of worked together on most ventures. Sometimes I'm in the forefront, sometimes he is, but most of them we've actually just strategized and worked together on it. What we do now is we do bespoke high performance coaching, where primarily I'm taking the lead on this to help practices become successful in whichever aspect of success they want to attain. It's very bespoke and it's very personalized, so that we can customize strategies to the individual practice. I'm a great believer in that customization process, because standard protocols are useful, but sometimes you leave a lot on the table. So this is what I primarily focus on now. And Rahul is actually clinical strategy development director for Dentex, which is a corporate now, and they've now made it to 100 practices, which is fantastic. So Rahul's helping to look after those 100 practices. We've been doing business coaching now for over 15 years, thereabouts. We've had multiple practices ourselves over the years, bought and sell them. We've had the Perfect Smile Advanced Training Institute, where we used to run hands-on courses clinical hands-on courses for dental practices and dental teams, so that they would know how to sort of treatment plan right from beginning to end. We've been speakers internationally. Dental Wealth Builder is actually internationally based, so we have clients all over the world. Rahul's done clinical editorship with Premium Practice Dentistry magazine. We're both judges for the National Private Dentistry Awards for over a decade now. We just recently went to their award ceremony, which was really, really fun. And it was really so good to see a lot of my clients attaining the success that they wanted to there. And also Rahul's been the past president of the British Academy of Cosmetic Dentistry. And so, you know, we've actually gained quite a bit of experience under our belts when it comes to successful practices, increasing the EBITDA, which is the profitability of a practice, and it's something that we focused on. And at one point we were the go-to dentist for media consultations. So we've done a lot of work, you know, with various programs like Extreme Makeover UK, This Morning, lots of other TV work. And we've got a whole host of articles and things that we've actually published and, you know, been there in the industry. So it's been really fun to sort of look back over a career such as this, where we both kind of attained quite a bit of success, and primarily because we've worked collaboratively together. But now the passion is sort of, you know, I want to give back to the profession as much as I can via coaching, via the experience that we've got. You know, our mission, both mine and Rahul's now, is to contribute as much as we can to the profession, leaving some form of legacy before we finally retire. I don't think I'll ever retire, but, you know, but this is our mission now. So, you know, we're coming at this, all the ideas and strategies and things I'm going to talk to you about today is things that we've actually developed in our own practices, and we've seen great success in our own businesses, but also in those businesses that we've coached over the years as well. And we've come to this formula, which has been really refined and adapted in such a way that it produces results if it's done in the correct way. So what I'm talking about when I'm saying, you know, to successfully gain case acceptances is I'm not talking about small fee-based treatment plans. So I'm not talking about single tooth dentistry or small, you know, small treatment plans. I'm talking about more comprehensive treatment plans, large treatment plans, more complexity with treatment plans. And that's a different ball game when you're talking to patients, because there's a lot more to consider, especially with the complexity involved, and a lot more to understand with regards to patients. But we have a formula of how this works and to gain the success in this. Now, I use the term selling quite liberally. So I just want to define what I actually mean by sales. What I'm not talking about is, you know, forcing the sale or pushing the sale on a patient. What I'm actually talking about is that selling is the process of helping someone discover something of value, and therefore they're happy to pay for it. So it's about always having the patient's best interest in their mind. You know, you want to be as ethical as you possibly can, you know, throughout the entire process, but it's helping them to discover that that's something that of value, that they really feel that this is what they want, and, you know, this is going to benefit them in so many multiple ways. And any of the strategies that I've ever employed in any sort of aspect of business growth and business success has always been a win-win-win formula. And I'm a great believer in this, because you're not going to get the success. It's going to be very short-lived if you primarily focus on just one aspect here. So if we just look at patients, but we're not getting what we want out of the practice, or the team isn't getting what they want out of the practice, then it's not going to work long term. And the same with, if only the dentists and the patients are getting what they want, then the team are going to become frustrated with their roles, and you're going to get less engagement from the team. So it has to be a win-win-win situation, regardless of whatever strategy you implement in your practice. And that's one of the key sort of tips I would suggest, is that, recommend, is that whenever you put something in place, always make sure that the team, sometimes we miss the team out, so make sure the team are getting what they want out of it as well, and they're just as on board with the whole process. And that is actually my definition of success, where the patients are getting comprehensive long-term dentistry, they're getting their teeth fixed, which is what we should be able to do now because we've got the technologies available. The dentist is getting the growth and the success and the value within the business that they want, and the team are getting what they want because they are able to grow and develop with the practice, and they feel very satisfied with their jobs. So it's very important that any of the things that we talk about, we attain this aspect. Now, as you sort of go through, working with your patients, working with your teams, there's often numerous barriers and challenges that we face, which prevents us from gaining the case acceptances that you actually want. So, you might find that patients maybe cancel appointments, especially when you go for that comprehensive dentistry. They may not say yes, and they've tried to find an excuse around this, and they might say things like, oh, I'll think about it, or it's too expensive, or just don't go ahead, and they sort of fizzle out and you can't get hold of them, or they end up going elsewhere. Now, in my sort of experience and the way I kind of think and the way I train the mindset for people that I work with, is that we've got to think about what makes a patient come to us in the first place. So patients have gone through a psychological journey to come to us, and that journey may be of varying lengths of time. So they might experience that they actually have a problem for whatever stimulus that may be. And then they keep getting that stimulus over and over again until it builds into a crescendo. And then eventually they think, I've had enough, and too much, enough is enough. And then what they do is they say to themselves, I've got to do something about this. So it might be that they've got crooked teeth and they don't dislike that. And they're not, they always see themselves in their pictures and they don't like that. Or it might be they've got missing teeth, or it might be some kind of dentistry that they're looking for, or some kind of ailment they see psychologically with regards to their mouth that they don't like. And then eventually they decide to do something about it. And of course, they know nothing about what is actually available to them. So they go on Google, do their Google research, and there's a whole, it's a whole plethora of information out there. And that can be quite confusing, because too much information can be very, very confusing for patients. So it becomes really difficult for them. And then they finally find, sort of self-diagnose, I call this, where they say, well, perhaps I should have Invisalign, or perhaps I should have implants, or maybe I should have veneers done. And they do their research, and then they try to find the dentist that's going to be most suitable for them. So they go through this, it's quite an intense journey, and we don't really appreciate this all the time when patients actually call us and inquire in our practice, and we think take this quite lightly. We sort of say, well, our marketing is just work, but patients have actually gone on a certain length of journey. So the truth is, people don't want to go shopping around. People don't have lots of time in their lives. We're all quite busy, and so to have to go down the directory and call several people to then decipher which one's right for you, it's not a comfortable process, and that's not what patients really want to do. What patients want to do is they feel they've got a problem, and they just want a solution, and they want to actually call the first person that they have from the marketing, from Google, that they feel that, you know, this is the right person for them, right practice for them. They actually just want to, you know, come in, book the appointment, get the right treatment done, and they want to say yes. So the mindset that I teach is every patient that comes to your practice wants to say yes. What happens is that in the way the practice is set up, what tends to happen is we kind of unravel that yes, and we kind of unsell a person who is pre-motivated and ready to buy. So we kind of go through a process. There's things that happens in the practice that makes the patient lose trust, maybe not feel as comfortable, feel maybe they can get something better, not get value for money. There's a whole host of reasons that they may feel that this is not right for them. And that's when they start coming up with these kind of excuses and cancel on you. So one of the things that I say to you is, if a patient inquires at your practice, it's not just your marketing that's working, it's the patient wants to say yes. And if we have that mindset and the patient says no, or we feel the patient not quite you know, sort of getting what they want out of this, and we have to ask the question, why? Why is this patient wanting to say yes now not saying yes? And by asking that question, because we have that mindset and that psychology, we will then be able to find the right answers that we need in our practice. So it's quite right that, you know, in order to have practice growth, dentists become proficient and expert and gain knowledge in their field of dentistry, and become highly qualified and do lots of postgraduate training. That's what we should do, because it builds our confidence up, it allows us to produce optimal work, and there's less likely for problems to occur in the future because of that. So it's right that we do this, but there's another side to the equation that we need to appreciate just as much. And that is that we might be learning all these skills and wanting to do this kind of dentistry, whatever type of dentistry that is, but you can end up having your skills be as redundant and not used as much as you wanted to use those skills. And primarily, it becomes because the other half of the equation is people management. It's managing your patients and their expectations and what they want and the solutions they're looking for. And it's managing your team's expectations as well and what they're looking out of their job and their role, and leading your team in a way that directs them towards a practice that's growing and is profitable. So there's another half to the equation, but because as dentists, we haven't really acquired the knowledge, you know, at dental school or as we progress throughout our careers, our comfort zones are clinical dentistry. So we tend to go back to our comfort zones all the time because we feel good. We feel good talking about dentistry, but there is another side of the equation, especially if you have a business or looking to attain a business, that we really need to work on. So it's all about gaining a return on investment, ROI. And unfortunately, there are other pieces to the puzzle here that we need to have in place that will allow us to be able to do the dentistry that we want to the level that we want to do it at. So, you know, in the end, what we're looking to do is do more of the dentistry that we've trained in. We want to enjoy that. We want to get job satisfaction. We want to feel happy doing this. We want to feel good going into our practices. And we want our team to feel good as well, and our patients to feel good. But sometimes what tends to happen is we tend to go on like an emotional roller coaster, because sometimes we don't get the results that we're looking for. And there might be great inconsistencies here. So some months might be good, some months might not be good. And we sort of end up feeling that the treatment plans become a little bit heavily influenced by what the patient's looking for specifically, and less by what we want. So our treatment plans kind of reduce in size, and we kind of phase them out and do them in small amounts rather than fully, fully comprehensive treatment. What we're looking for is more holistic, comprehensive work. And you don't want to lose potential income whilst you're doing this and leaving a lot on the table. And what can happen is that when you're not getting the returns, often people don't look at themselves or look at what's actually happening within the practice. And then the blame tends to go on marketing. Oh, the marketing's not working, or we're not getting the right type of patients, or we need more patients. But what you're really saying there is, you're doing small fee-based treatment plans, so you need more patients of those small fee-based treatment plans to make up the revenue targets that you're looking for. And that's quite hard to actually do. It's much better to have less patients where you do more comprehensive work on them, and therefore you're sort of always flourishing as a practice. So we want to sort of steer away from them. There's lots of internal processes that are quite important and that we need to look at before we start blaming marketing, or before, but I mean, the sensible thing to do is to look at your marketing and your internal processes. So if you've got poor sales, internal processes and internal marketing, or you might have incorrect team actions as a consequence, or team inaction as a consequence of those poor processes, then you're not really going to be getting the treatments accepted the way that you need to. And you might be leaving a lot on the table, and that's bad for a situation for you and your practice, but it's also a bad situation for your patients who aren't getting what they really came to you for. Now, when revenues start going down, dentists go crazy. I see it all the time. I've seen it in my 30 years experience with my own practices, and then I saw it with practices I've coached. We go a bit reactive in the whole thing, and we start doing smaller treatment plans and be okay with it, and we start giving discounts and lowering the fees, and we slash training. And the worst thing that we do is we make assumptions. We make terrible assumptions that we shouldn't be making, because it's unraveling the process even further. And we actually fear sales and marketing. But the biggest thing is that what tends to happen is you then develop, because of your reactive behavior, and we all know once we are reactive, or if we're stressed as a practice principal, then that's going to have a domino effect on the entire team, and subsequently it's going to have a domino effect on your patients. But you tend to end up developing a blame culture. So the team culture and the values tend to break down because of this sort of stressed out reactive behavior that we have. And then what happens is that we tend to operate from a place of fear. So all decision making is made from a place of fear. Now, the more that happens, we get wrapped up in working in the business, and we forget about working on the business, which means that we've got we don't have proper team management, we have reactivity, everything becomes unstructured and disorganized. And the biggest problem here that occurs is that as practice owners, we begin to lose confidence in our own ability in decision-making and managing our teams. And that's where we sort of think, why aren't our team motivated? If I did this. So then what we do is we retract, and we get into our comfort zones, and our comfort zones is smaller fee-based dentistry, doing the simpler work, but then we're not getting enough of the patients. So yes, we're getting patients saying yes, but they're not saying yes to comprehensive dentistry. They're saying yes to small single tooth dentistry, that sort of thing. So all this happens because we're operating from a place of fear. And then if we add into the mix non-impactful communication, then it tends to really become a mess, because what we feel that just because we've said it does not necessarily mean our team or our patients have actually understood. What good communication is, impactful communication, is where our intended meaning has been transferred across. But you know, this is a technique. It's something that needs to be learned. It's a skill that needs to be learned and elevated. And the entire team needs to learn how to communicate correctly. And when I say communication, it's not just communication in things like your body language, your tone of voice, your speed of voice, mirroring the patient, those kind of things, but that's very important as well. And that's, you know, communication 101 basics. But what I'm also talking about is what you say, how you say it, when you say it, in the correct order of what you say. And that becomes part of the sales process and the internal marketing dialogue, so that the patients are becoming aware. And what's happened, what we need to be doing is the internal messages that we, you know, transfer to our patients need to be correlating with the external messages that we're actually giving to, you know, in our marketing. Because if there's any sort of disparity there, you're going to be sending mixed messages, and it's going to get really confusing for your patients. And that's when patients don't understand what you're trying to get across. And dentistry is very complex, so, you know, we shouldn't take that lightly. But when patients don't understand, then that's when they're going to sort of, you know, they're not going to say to you, I don't understand. And, you know, some patients might, but majority of them won't, because they don't want to look silly to, you know, professionals. So what will probably happen is they'll say, oh, I need to think about it, I need more information, I need to talk to my partner, and make all these excuses up. Now, another thing that I feel is quite important when it comes to internal sales or try to gain case acceptances is that you need the entire team to be involved. When there is lack of team coordination, and you know, if there's overly reliant on just operational systems alone, then you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. What can happen is that when you're just operational is that when you have the features in place in your business that so that you can stay open as a practice. So it's things like CQC, invoicing, you know, wages, that kind of thing, things that you get, the ordering, those kind of things. They're operational systems. But what tends to happen is we merge operational systems with growth systems. But growth system is something totally different. The more you work on growth systems, the higher your revenue will go. The more work you work on operational systems, it's not directly correlated to your revenues. It's just correlated to an efficient practice. So we need team coordination. Now, the other thing when it comes to team coordination is we mustn't be overly reliant on one or two team members. The other thing that is when you have a misaligned team because they're uncoordinated, you know, they've got lots of other issues occurring, then you're not going to have the sales process occurring the way you want to, because you've got too many moving variables. So in any system, which is a stepwise system, step one comes first, then step two, then step three, step four. If you've got an uncoordinated team and you've got misalignment, then there's too many variables occurring, which means you're going to find it very difficult to create that consistency of results. And that's where I find some months the practice is doing really well and other months the practice isn't doing really well. And then you sort of ask yourself the question, well, why was it doing well then and not now? But it's because of all this that's actually happening. And one thing that we need to understand here is that the team may be misaligned because of deep rooted underlying issues that we haven't really addressed because we've not really spent time working on our business. And they could be things like insecurities. You know, people, your team may say yes to you, but they might not feel that, they may feel quite a bit of anxiety in actually doing those processes that you put them in, or that role or that position. And then they don't do it as well, or they might want to impress you and say, yes, oh, I can do that, but then they might not be able to do it. So we have to, as leaders, we have to look at that. team might have different focuses. Everyone on the team might be doing different things or for different reasons. And they might not have that understanding as to why we're actually doing something, because they've not had any business training. So, why would they? Why should they know these things? They might have misaligned visions as well. So if every team member is focusing on a different thing, or they think the practice is there for a different reason, then again, you're going to have misaligned teams. And what you don't want is, you don't want people team members coming into your practice and just working for a wage. They just do their 9 to 5 or whatever hours they do, and they're just there for the wage, because then they'll be looking on, how can I increase that wage in the quickest, easiest way possible, and doing the very least work as possible. So, it's the team culture breaks down when everyone's on different wavelengths. And then, of course, the practice owner sees results not working the way they need to, and loses confidence in their own management abilities. And again, it becomes you sort of fall into this cycle where you then start operating from a place of fear that causes other negativity, and you're into this cycle which you feel that you can't break out of. So it becomes a very distressing situation. And I feel a lot for dental practice owners. So when I work with dental practice owners, one of the things I'm looking to do is to break this cycle. How do we break this cycle that you're in? And, initially it's like, you have to sort of understand it, but then thereafter, it's huge success. You suddenly open the floodgates to success in gaining case acceptances and having patients say yes to your recommendations. When the team is unmotivated or uninspired, then what tends to happen when the team loses its mojo, you also get a lackluster customer service. And this is primarily because of the inefficiencies and the ineffectivities that are actually occurring. And again, this sort of, causes all sorts of issues when the team are losing passion for their work. What we are looking for is consistency of results. One of the things that I don't like random business. So I don't like random results. It needs to be where we are sure, more certain of what the results are going to be. And we need to get rid of any inconsistencies that are happening. And metrics can help us to do that. But we don't want to have that many metrics that paralyzes us in our analysis process. So we don't want analysis paralysis going on, but there are certain metrics that you can look at, and what that will do is alleviate the stress. And that's one of the biggest things I think happening in practices, although practices don't want to own up to this all the time, but stress is caused by all these inefficiencies and ineffectivities in the business. And then what tends to happen is that, what I found is the number one reason for patient complaints and medico-legal suits and things is that we didn't understand patient expectations. We did not spend the time to protect ourselves and protect our patients as well in trying to understand why they're there in the first place. And this is why I'm saying we've made so many assumptions in the past, as to why your patients are actually there, that we need to sort of help them. Now, when it comes to the sales process or gaining case acceptances, having your patients say yes to your treatment recommendations, one of the biggest things that we need to understand is the buying decision. And I've spent a huge amount of time understanding the psychology behind sales. And I've simplified this whole process of what patients are looking for. The truth is, we give ourselves the excuse that if the patient hasn't gone ahead with the recommendation, it's because of money, but that's not the truth. That may be part of the truth, but it's not the entire truth. And by understanding consumer purchasing behavior, we can actually allude to that. And the important thing is, these sort of things that you see, luxury items and high ticket items, people buy them all the time, and they love the buying process. And the reason why they actually love the buying process is because the decision that they made when they bought these luxury items or high ticket items is an emotional one. They've purchased emotionally, and then what they've done, they've supported that mentally with logical internal dialogue. So you buy emotionally and you support that logically. And the truth is, emotions are about feelings, right? If we feel good, then we like to be around that environment, and we feel happy to proceed. And if we don't feel good, then we don't want to be in that environment. And therefore, we are valuing what we want because it makes us feel good. It's emotional. It's a positive emotion that we're experiencing. But we don't tend to value what we need, because need is a very logical thing. So let me explain this further. So when you want is a feeling you have, and when you have it, you want more of it because it makes you feel good. And that's where all these high ticket items and luxury goods and, more higher fee-based treatment plans come in, because it's making patients feel good. Need, however, is a feeling when you have it, you want to get rid of it because you have to do it. And therefore, it keeps you in the logical area of your brain. It's things like if you have to fix the roof, or you have to get your car serviced, or you have to fix a sterilizer, or the compressor doesn't work, or you have to get another team member. You need it. So you don't really, you don't feel good doing that, because it's not an enjoyable process. So when we look at case acceptance, now case acceptance occurs when our patients want what they need. So that's our role. We discover what they need because that's our professional work and expertise that we do. But when patients actually want that, because it's providing the answers to their solutions, so the solutions to their problems, and then there's value there where it's all wrapped up in huge value, that's when case acceptance occurs, because they want what they need with value. So it all becomes about perceived value. It's not the actual fee of the actual treatment or the actual price of the good. It's the perceived value. You see, when patients have done their research and they could come to your practice, and that you take them through whatever process you might have in your practice currently, and then you talk to your patients about the treatment plan that you're suggesting and recommending. If patients feel that, the cost of that treatment plan is what they expected anyway, then they're going to think, yeah, it's a fair fee. I kind of expected that anyway. But they may still want to do a little bit of research to see if they can get something better. Now, when you've given them so much value in your practice, value can come in so many forms. It can come in form of communication. It can come in form of how your patients experience the journey in your practice. Now, when the value far supersedes the actual cost of the treatment plan, that's when patients are going to think, this is really good. This is, I've got a good deal here. This is something I want, and I'm going to go for it. The problem comes when there's no perceived value. Patients feel that there's nothing here. You're just charging a high fee, but then they think, well, I can go to Harley Street, or I can go to another practice, or a practice that's much better. So they start looking at this. Remember, they are doing their Google research as well. And that's when they start seeing things as a high fee, because they don't understand what it is that you've actually explained to them and what you're actually giving to them. So when value is not perceived, then cost is always going to become an issue. And that's because they don't know how else to compare you. They don't know how to compare your practice with someone else. They don't know how else to assimilate the information you're giving them other than cost. And this work comes down to when you've given them itemized fee in the treatment plan, and they're then looking at and say, well, I won't have this done, and I'll have this done, and I won't have this done. And that just breaks apart your entire treatment plan and recommendation. The analogy I'll give you here is you know, if you're going to have a heart operation and the surgeon gives you a list of things that they need to do, and is you saying, well, no, I won't have a suture here, and I won't have this medication, and I won't have this, you know, it messes up what the surgeon's going to do, and you'd never do that. But for some reason, when patients come to our practices, that's exactly what they do. And that's where your recommendations, you know, break apart, and you end up doing smaller fee-based treatment plans, or you tend to take longer to complete the comprehensive work that you want to. So it's all comes down to perceived value. And where does the value spring from? Value springs from what I like to call the hot button. The hot button is a thing that has actually motivated your patient to come into your practice. It's motivated them because the psychological pain of whatever you know, problem or issue or dental issue they're actually experiencing is so advanced that, you know, it's bothered them to such a huge degree, and they're looking for a solution there. So we need to actually find the hot button by asking them questions about what stopped them. Why haven't they had this done so far? What's motivating them to have it done now? You know, that patients come to us, they invest time, they ring us, our practice up, spend time talking, and then they actually invest their time again to come for the examination. And they put money down as well for the examination appointment. So it's a huge amount they're risking. You know, they feel that they're actually risking because that's in the hope that you're going to add the value. You're going to give them the value that they're actually looking for. When patients come to see us, we have an optimal treatment plan because of our professional expertise. We're actually looking, you know, after diagnosing and treatment planning with the patient, we actually have a treatment plan in our mind. But what we need to appreciate is that the patients have also self-diagnosed. They've done their research, and it may be incorrect. I'm not saying it's correct, but they actually come to us with what I like to call the patient why. Okay, the patient has a reason why they have chosen us, what they feel that we are going to give them. And so they have a why. We have a why as well, because we do certain treatments in the way that we do it and how we do it and deliver it in that way. So we have a why we do what we do in the way we do it. And the patients have a why, which is what they're looking for, what the fix that they're actually looking for when they come to see us. You will not get case acceptance occurring if these two don't match. If there's no synchronicity between these two, you know, patients are looking for the value and you're looking for the treatment, the correct treatment for them. What you need to do is you need to hit the sweet spot where brand perception, which is from the patient's point of view, how they perceive your brand, it correlates with the brand value, which is the value your practice is providing the patient. So we need to hit the sweet spot. It's a tongue twister there. But so how do we go about doing that? So if you look at this curve here, you've got percentage effort or success on what the vertical axis, and the horizontal axis is your treatment plan or your fee per treatment plan. Now, what we tend to do is when you want to change, when you want to ever level up, you tend to hit this wall. And it could be for whatever reason. So it could be things like, you know, you want to do, you know, a single implant. Now you want to do multiple implants, or you're doing single, you want to do more higher, larger cases, or you want to do complex dentistry, or you want to just increase your income, or you want to get multiple practices. Whatever change of leveling up you're actually looking for, you will hit this wall. Now, the thing is, you need to appreciate that there has to be a change occurring, because you're operating on a basic level on one side, and in order for you to then achieve the results that you want to, you need to be operating on an elevated level on the other side in order to that transformation to occur. So everyone on your team has basic skills on one side and needs to elevate to, to more complex, more organized skills in order to achieve the results. And that's where you'll be able to break down the wall. So before the wall, you're often talking about simpler dentistry, which is often in younger patients. And because of that, and because of the low risks involved, patients don't overthink this. They don't ask the question, is this the right practice for me? Are you the right dentist for me? They simply say, yeah, okay, it's generally right. They're dentists, they'll do the right thing, and they just go for it. So it becomes word of mouth. Yeah, they're good dentists. Dentist influence, in the sense that, as a dentist, you can say to your patient, this is the treatment plan I recommend. Because it's so small fee based, they usually go for it. The problem is on the other side of the wall, where elevated skills are required. Now we're talking about more higher fees. So this is a different ball game now. And not only that, but the dentistry tends to be more complex, more occlusion involved and that sort of thing. More than 2 teeth are often involved here. So because of this, now the complexity of the dentistry and the high fee associated with that, patients have to think this through. There's more about understanding here. And because patients have to think this through, and there's a lot of understanding and they're trying to understand complex issues, complex complex situations that you're actually presenting them, like what's an implant, what does an implant do, pros and cons, or how will my teeth be straightened. So these sort of analogies and things that you give them are quite complex. And now what patients are going to be doing is thinking, are you the right practice for them? So there's this practice. Are you the exact practice for them? If they're going to spend this amount of money, what are they getting for it? Are they getting value for money? Is this going to last them a lifetime? Are you the right dentist? Do you have the right skills? So they're asking all these types of questions, which means you have to have some more sophisticated systems, more elevated systems. You have to have stronger marketing messages, both external and internal. You have to have enhanced communication skills. It's a lot more complex here. You need finance structures in place as well. And you need to know how to talk finance with patients because of these high fee-based treatment plans. And I know Tabio has got loads of, tools that they can help you with. I'm really impressed with what they actually have. But coming back to this, you need to know how to talk money with patients, because without that organization of the entire team, you're not going to be able to break through the wall. And in order to actually do that, you not only need sales processes, but you need to know what is your brand perception going to be? What kind of brand perception are you trying to establish? You need to have an elevated level of customer service to add value. You need an elevated level of communication ability as well to add value to the patient as well. And you need team engagement. And you see, previously, and all this will actually give you the return on investment that you want with patients saying yes to those treatment plans. One of the things that me and Rahul have done in all our practices that we had ourselves was focus on high fee-based treatment plans. So a lot of this that I'm talking to you about all this today is things that we've actually used ourselves, and we've refined it over many, many years to actually give the results that we see today. So, I'm really confident in the approach that this that can give you and the results that it can give you. You see, previously, about 40, 50 years ago, patients used to come to the dentist, and the dentist used to advise treatment, and the patients, they'd be loyal. They'd just say, yes, okay, fine. And in fact, whole families used to come to dental practices. That's all changed subsequently. There's not much of that left. And then there was the advent of the treatment coordinator, where you had the dentist giving the clinical advice, and then the treatment coordinator would talk to the patients about the preliminary work and what they're looking for, and so on and so forth, and do the administrative duties. But, you know, in my opinion, I think things have changed, and we have to look at the way the world is now. And it's actually changed. I feel there's just too much onus, too much pressure, and over-reliance on the treatment coordinator and the dentist. And sometimes that's not going to give you the results that you're looking for. What I talk about now is you've got the clinical aspect. Of course, only the dentist can actually diagnose and treatment plan. So that will always remain. But you've also got the sales aspect as well. And this is more about a sales journey, a communication process, an experience that the patients have. And it's actually an entire team thing. You need to get the entire team involved rather than just be reliant on one or two people in the practice. Because what happens when you sort of move on the other side of the wall is that patients are going to be looking at everything. They're going to be scrutinizing everything. They're going to be using every single sensory system they have to give them intuition and a gut feeling about whether your practice is going to be the one for them or not. And therefore, you need to actually break down the entire process into small components so it becomes a multi-step process. But you need to engage the entire team so that everyone's saying the same message, saying exactly, you know, or everyone's aligning. Therefore, the brand perception is exactly what you want it to be. And therefore, this journey needs to be something where you're adding value. It needs to have a multi-step approach, which is a clever way of really enhancing and reinforcing that brand perception. It allows you to differentiate yourself from other dental practices that may be perhaps doing the same dentistry that you're doing. It allows you to put a lot of psychology into the sales. Where you're giving subliminal sales messages and helping the patients to feel good and want the dentistry that they actually need. Again, this is team driven. You can't do this by yourself, and you can't overly rely on one person in your practice either. And the biggest thing here that I found is that, and that found to be quite transformative actually, is consistency. You get consistent results every single month, month in, month out. And therefore you are able to tweak the process, refine it, adapt it. During the COVID pandemic, during the lockdown, one of the things that I did with my clients is actually we worked on refining this process. While everyone was stressing about the SOPs and what they're going to be, we were refining the sales journey. And then all we did is we took the SOPs and we integrated it into the actual experience that we wanted to create for the patient. And it was just hugely successful doing it that way around. Now, one thing I will tell you straight off is I've been doing this for years now. And I will tell you that these strategies and these things that I'm talking about works anywhere. As long as you've got human beings you're working on, it'll work anywhere. It will work in rural areas and urban areas alike. It will work in whatever type of leveling up you want to do. If you've got an NHS practice and you want to do a greater volume of private, it'll work with that. If you want to gain multiple practices that I work with now, it'll work in there. So it's not a case of, you know, that this isn't going to work for me. It'll work everywhere. It's just a case of adapting the system so that it works in your practice to the way that your patients are and the brand perception and the marketing that you want to actually create. So it's about creating your own personalized, bespoke, unique sales process. It's not just a case of putting a standard process in place. And this is something that I tend to work with all the practices that I work with. Now, I'm just going to go back to the assessment process. In most practices, this is what happens. So if you look at this triangle, the three sections of the triangle represents the volume of effort that's actually put into the patient during this time. So you've got everything that happens before the clinical examination. Then you've got the clinical examination where the dentist diagnoses and treatment plans. And then you've got everything that happens past the clinical assessment. Now, I found that practices lie on a spectrum. So you might have some practices where the conversation on the telephone might be maybe 5-10 minutes, something like that. Patient gets booked in for half an hour to 40 minutes with the dentist. And then in that time, the dentist builds the rapport, does the clinical examination, does the diagnosis, treatment planning, and explains the treatment plan. So that's quite a lot to squish into and communicate into that time. Other practices on the spectrum actually spend a bit more time initially with perhaps introducing a treatment coordinator before the clinical assessment. Then the dentist does the clinical examination. And then you tend to have this sort of finale of a presentation, where you're sort of presenting your case, so to speak. And patients have caught on to that. So, it doesn't tend to work. At Dental Wealth Builder, what I've formulated over all the years of my experience is I've reversed the triangle. So I've flipped it round. What I do call this is opening with a close, whereby in the pre-assessment, which is everything that happens before the clinical examination, the communication has occurred, the patient should feel before they actually come in to see the dentist that this is the practice for them. They've built the trust and urgency and the value, and they feel, right, what's wrong with me? What do I need? And they're just waiting to say yes, because what you've done, you've actually supported their thoughts as they've come through to the practice, rather than unraveling them wanting to say yes. So this is what we teach, which is slightly different. The entire process is, as I mentioned, is team driven, which means that it enables you to have more of a cohesive team, which is effective and working efficiently. Thereby, you're maximizing your resources that you have in your practice, a smarter way to run a business. You have to understand psychology of sales. You can't just tell a patient, oh, this is what you need, and it be a high fee-based treatment plan. You're not going to get the success that you want. So in a lot of what I teach, right from the beginning, where we sort of work on your mindset so that you look at things in a different way, and that helps your decision making, and it supports your decision making process and the team as well, right through to the way you communicate to the patients and the subliminal messages that you actually give to your patients to support the brand perception and the brand values you're trying to create. Also, verbal skills are really important, but they need to be customized. It can't be like a call center where there's kind of reading through a script and you ask them a question and they repeat that. And, I've actually had that happen several times to me, where I've asked a question in a different way and I was just playing with them. And basically, I was just trying to assess their sales process, and they literally repeat the same content to me in exactly the same way. So I know then they're reading from a script and they can't really help me in the way that I need to. So verbal skills are really important. The language we use and how we actually use that, what we say when, is very important. But I'm a great believer in customizing that to the practice that we have and the marketing messages you're trying to convey. And that needs to be integrated into your sales process. Of course, telephone patient management now is not just being administrative. It's not about just, booking appointments, collecting money, and just having brief conversation. It's a lot more than that, because, this is what I like to call the gatekeepers. This is where your patients are either being transformed into a patient of your practice. So potential patients are being transformed into actual patient of your practice, or you're losing those patients, which means you're losing out on a great deal, because you're never going to get a return on your marketing. And so it might be that your marketing's good, but it might be this stage that isn't, it just needs a little bit more work. And the thing is, the conversations need to occur consistently as well in how you actually format them and speak to them. And that's just as true with new patient consultations, and how you actually gauge your patients, how you engage them as well, and how you figure out what their hot buttons are. The treatment coordinator role, I call it a role and not a treatment coordinator as a person, because not all practices can or do create treatment coordinators. However, you can incorporate the role within your practice very easily without any additional expense to you. And of course, you know, your clinical examinations need to be leveled up as well, because now it's about co-discovery and working with your patients and engaging your patients. The more your patients are engaged, the more likely they are to go ahead with the treatment plans you recommend, because they're working with you collaboratively, as opposed to you telling them what they actually need. And then, yes, you do need effective case presentations, because it's all part and parcel. Everything's important when it comes to business, I feel. So you do want a process on making your case presentations effective. However, that doesn't mean you dismiss the fact that we want to close right earlier on in the process, as opposed to at case presentations. If you've done everything correctly, case presentation, which is everything when you're presenting your treatment plan, should really be a formality. Patients should really kind of be knowing what's happening and expecting the fees that you're actually going to be presenting them as well. So what we're actually looking to do is increase our profits. We want consistent results. We want to be able to prevent stagnation, which allows you to be able to make the correct decisions, because you're going to be hitting challenges and obstacles all the time. You know, whenever you change something new, and especially moving on to the future, you've got to know how to actually adapt those changes, because everything changes in the world. You know, if we look at you know, everything upgrades. Mobile phones upgraded, you know, last 25 years. Look what's happened to our phones. We've got phones that we can take pictures with, and, you know, communicate right across the world within seconds. So everything will change, and you need to also have that ability to know how to adapt your practice and how to refine your sales process so that you attain those you know, sales that you want, and patients do end up saying yes to your treatment recommendations. And of course, the treatments are going to change themselves as well, because we're advancing so fast in the dental industry, with advances in all different types of treatments, and making them better and quicker and more efficient. And, you know, so again, all that is part of communication and how we actually communicate to our patients on these newer techniques. So we do need to have practice upgrade. This is going to allow you to get 10 to 20 times ROI on your marketing returns. And that's what, when me and Rahul formulate strategies, that's what we formulate strategies for. We've got clients that are getting 20 times, if not more, return on investment on their marketing gains. I'll sort of allude to a couple of cases that I've actually worked with to sort of give you an idea of what actually happens. So we've got this one practice, oops, sorry, gone back, that we worked with in London, an implant practice. They were doing approximately about 40 grand a month. They were okay, but they were just lacked the communication skills. There wasn't no patient journey. They had a slightly incohesive team, everyone in different directions. So, you know, we helped them with leadership, inspiring the team. We created a personalized sales journey for them, and they were able to they're now doing over 100 grand a month because of these processes that we actually put into place. There's another practice that we worked with in the south of England, implant practice, pretty new. You know, they were just literally doing 35 grand. Wasn't sure, had a great team though, amazing team. I love the team. But their vision was that they wanted it to be high end, but they just didn't know the ropes. So what we did is the team was great, had great capabilities, but we just needed to introduce the sales system within the practice. And they're now doing over 200 grand a month, really doing absolutely well, you know, with the number of implants that they're putting in. So really fantastic. So, you know, these ideas work. You know, they've come from personal experience. Me and Rahul have actually formulated all the strategies, all the systems, and we've got quite a lot of experience now working with a variety of practices on how to actually make this work for you. One thing I will encourage you to do is, reach out to me. If you've got my email there, bafna@dentalwealthbuilder.com, and, just reach out if you've got any questions, to practice principles. They're out there, you want help with, maybe I can highlight a few ways forward for you. And sometimes it's just the one thing that kind of opens up all the floodgates for you, and gives you the results that you're looking for. So do reach out. I really urge you to reach out and, and see if I can help you in any way. Now, next time, I think 7th of December here, I'm going to be doing a great seminar on leadership, and it's about motivating and inspiring your team so that they can actually make all this work for you. They can make the sales process work. They can make the marketing work for you. That's where all the return on investment is, where your team are actually engaged, because what you're essentially doing with your team is you're duplicating yourself. So they're actually doing things for you. And that's when the team culture is right, that's when your brand values and your brand perception is going to be right. That's when you're going to be hitting that sweet spot. We do actually have an online program now where all this is actually online on how you can do this yourself within your practice. It's quite good. I'm very proud of this. There's nothing like it in the industry anywhere. It's got over 65 videos, and I'm constantly adding more and refining it. There's 12 modules there. And the most important thing here, it's got action plan videos. So therefore, you know exactly what you need to action and integrate into your practices, and workbooks associated. And as I mentioned, I'm constantly adding bonus material all the time. So I think, have a look and see if that's of any use to you and you feel that's good. So other than that, just want to say thank you for your attention and your evening, spending your evening with us tonight. Really appreciate that. Hope you've got quite a few takeaways from what I've said there. But as I mentioned, reach out if you want some personalized one. I don't know, Chung, if there's any questions or anything there.
So I'll mute myself. We had a couple of questions, but I've responded to them directly. More actually just contact information, which it's great you got on screen there. But yeah, super thank you for that. Lots of value from that single hour. And I think, as you say, I've sort of scribbled notes. I can see a lot of wisdom in a lot of things that we mentioned, and I think that, as you're right, oftentimes one little thing can change everything. And we never know just how far we are from that sort of single tweak, because it could be, we speak to a lot of practices, and there's definitely a lot of motivation and talent there, and sometimes it is just a case of that little tweak or a little steer to take it to the next level. But yeah, fantastic, thank you. Super brilliant. Well, again, I just sort of share certain sentiments to that. I think thank you for everyone who's sort of attending this session. Appreciate you sort of kind of taking the time out in the evening to do this, and we'll sort of follow up with an email. We'll include details about how to get in touch, and also we'll send another email again for the next session. I say this is the second in this 6-part series. Each one has a very sort of specific and focus, but yeah, super. Thank you so much for that.
Great, fantastic. Thank you everyone for your attention, and we shall see you soon.
Brilliant. Have a great evening. Thank you.